It's about as difficult as a brief as I've had in 25 years, which is why, of course, I'm not going to answer it, because I'm not sure there is an answer to how do you start bridging the talent gap that exists in Asia, because I'm not sure there is anything like the talent gap that I keep hearing about. So let's talk about our own ecosystem and how we as a company are trying to buck the trend of people saying that talent gap in Asia is a major problem. And the truth of that is you have to look at the expose of yourself. Everything we do today is analytical. So we're no less analytical about ourselves as we are about the job that we do in media. We realized in 2010 that it's just not working. In truth, many of you in the room, I hope, would agree, we're just not looking in the right place for talent. We certainly don't know how to train talent. The truth is the training budget's the first thing that comes out of your P&L every year when things get bad. The budget goes dead. So we're not training people properly. There isn't that passion that was in the industry 5, 10, certainly 200 years ago when I started. But that's what needs to come back. And so we sat down as a team of people globally and regionally and started looking at what ecosystem do we need to have back in place to operate something which will attain and retain talent. So this is how we are doing it. This is just our journey. It's not anybody else's. So I'm not being divisive about anybody else or clients or other media agencies. This is just the journey that we are on. And that journey starts with an ecosystem. So this is how we have started to rebuild. We launched in Australia at the back end of 2010. It's been a work in progress through all of 2011, and we plan to roll out, because it's a success, in 2012 and possibly even 13, because these aren't things that we would claim to do overnight. To get it right, we need to learn from the building work that we've been doing and learn from all the things right, as well as all of the things that we have got wrong, because it's been a brilliant learning curve. The first one of those things is of course, finding our talent, but when we have them, making sure that we train them properly. Everybody in the room will start sniggering, saying, everybody claims they train. The reality is we run some very outdated training modules that don't really give the people what they need. It doesn't give them that nurturing ability to feel I'm really part of something, which is very much important in this ecosystem. You'll see that the ecosystem is circular. It's deliberately circular and not linear, because linear could not work. Circular means that everything that you'll see on this circle, obviously, is linked. There is an umbilical link between every one of these points that I'm going to point out, because they can't exist without each other. As I go through them, you'll understand how that it's very simple, and it has to be simple so that our guys can buy into it. So this first stage, when we find our people, the people that we want, we've got to make sure we train them properly. So what's training? What's the output that you need for training? And I think I've heard it twice from the two previous speakers. You're empowering people, you're giving them initiative, but you're giving them a knowledge bank. So that knowledge bank is then put to use. You've got to create knowledge in that training so that the confidence in themselves grows. So first stage for us is all about creating knowledge. The second one is about engaging our people. And engaging people is a very tricky situation, because immediately a lot of CFOs in the companies get very nervous. What are we going to tell them? It's not about sharing the business plans and what we're paying people. It's about ensuring that what we're doing with them showcases their capability, so that when they've been trained for a year or two, you do let them loose on clients. They are in meetings with media owners, and they are driving innovation. Sometimes the best ideas that we have as a company, over the last 15 months since we've been rolling this out, have come from our junior people, because they're unencumbered by lots of things that other guys have got in terms of responsibility. So it's important that you engage them. Showcasing that capability for our guys definitely drives that whole nurturing spirit. So within our ecosystem, training right the way through engagement kicks off the first 2 years of how we want to work. As you can see from that, our graphics guy had a real problem with his balls as he was putting that together. So note to self, new graphics guy. We get to involved. And again, involved sounds like a really simple word. It's genuinely kept simple because the first two stages are simple. And involve is all about creating communities for our guys to be involved in. So it's an open architecture setting. We don't create walls where people can't get in. The reality is when you're training people, lots of times people don't hear what's being said, but they're too frightened to put their hand up. So this knowledge gap appears behind. And the gap goes on for 2, 3, 4 years, and suddenly you find people don't really know how to do that, and they've got 4 years of knowledge. That does not happen in this new ecosystem. I'll explain how. This is all about making sure there's capability on every level, and that the sharing of information truly is an open architecture setting. which means that there is no Orwellian looking at what people are looking at. Yes, there are analytic systems. Yes, personally myself, the leader of OMD and PhD, know who has been in, but it's designed to make sure that everybody's getting what they need, which I will explain. So then you move on. You're moving into the really interesting parts, because if you get those things right, truly get them right, you will know that your people are buying into a philosophy. That philosophy is critical, because as you get the philosophy right, you're moving into the most important part of what we really need to build as companies from that first box of training. This is about where you talk about your principles, your beliefs, and your teamwork, how the power of we. So McDonald's was a client, and I was very happy to see how they work, because I myself have been on their Hamburger University, which was really fascinating 16 years ago, thinking what I was going to in my own perception versus what I did in reality. It really taught me a hell of a lot. So this is how the teamwork and the power of we comes to life in our organization. We're empowering people through a philosophy which shares our principles. They may not agree with all of them, they're open to challenge them, but they're set and they're done collaboratively with everybody, and they get updated, which I will come to. And the last one, and probably most important of all, because if you get all those things right, what you do internally, you create a culture. And that culture is really critical, because the culture is all about belief from the people that work for you. It's about understanding internally how people see being rewarded. They want to know how their careers advance. They want to know how their KPIs are measured, and when they're delivered, what next for me? How do I get my bonuses? And where am I in my career? So these are all tricky, thorny subjects for anyone who's a manager. And anyone in the room that says, oh, we did that very easily, we all know you're lying. It's not easy. When you're a manager, you're trained in diverting from those conversations, because we can't run a business plan that has everybody on a 10, 15, 20% upward surge in salary. But you've got to be able to manage people's expectations, because if you don't, you do not run an inclusive ecosystem. And if you don't run inclusive, it's not collaborative, and your people simply walk out of the door. So attaining talent all the way through retaining requires you to have a good ecosystem. So for us, over the last 18 months, this has been a key focus. It's been a big investment area. We're slightly behind in APAC. We're putting that right in January, and we're going hell for leather from the 15 months of learning we've had from Pacific, which has been brilliant learning. We're going for every market in Asia by 2013. It won't all be done by 12. These things don't get put in place in short periods of time, and claiming they do just puts people under very silly expectation. But we will get there, because talent is the key to our success in this changing landscape. So the journey begins. We heard a lot of things about where it does begin. Yes, we use colleges. I don't think we use them right at all. We scare off the best talent with stories of people telling them stories of 16-hour days. When we get them in, that's what they see. They see shots of, oh my goodness, I'm going to be working long hours. I actually think we're talking to the wrong kind of universities. Somebody very intelligent at the back, when I was talking about this, said, why don't you use polytechnics? Well, we've thought about polytechnics, but there's an aura around using them that you'll be fishing in a different talent pool. What you want is people that are hungry to move ahead. That's our job, to spot that talent. So we're going to look beyond where we're looking now. I think when you're looking for beyond 2 years talent, and I know that there are a headhunter in the room, at least one, so I'll be in their crosshairs with a sniper red dot on my head. Our talent internally, through their own peer group, know who the best people are. So we incentivize our people. We pay fees to our people. It's a damn sight less than the fees we're paying to headhunters, believe me. That doesn't mean to say we use them for everything. It doesn't. It just means to say it's also for your guys who work for you quite a big thing to say, can you help us find someone? There's a pride involved. It's all part of the being involved, inclusive, and engaged. Within that, I'm going to start walking now. The only reason I didn't earlier is I felt I might fall off the stage because I'm a little bit jet lagged. Here's something that we did in Australia in 2011. We get lots of grads, but we're kind of the wrong kind of grads, because they fall out very quickly because their expectations aren't being met by us. So we've started something which I did 25 years ago at Grey. 3 months interns coming in, and they work in each of these departments for 2 weeks. They get a feel, look and touch of what's right for them. We get to assess them, and probably this year 8 out of 10 from the close on 60 people we've had in, we think are in the right departments. There's always a failure rate, but all those failures are helping us to learn. Of course, when someone's in their career, what you've got to do is make sure that thing where your hand doesn't go up and say, I don't get it. You eradicate from your business. This is our biggest nemesis as an industry. People with lots of experience, believe me, I have CEOs I know do not understand performance platforms, but they're too frightened to say, I don't get it. We've got to eradicate that from the top to the bottom, open architecture, online. People go online, they don't register so that we're snooping. They can see everything that we do as a training module. They can download it, reread it with the notes of the speaker, and they can rejoin when the next module happens. Worked extremely well for us this year, and we're going to roll it out into other markets as a test. Not everywhere at once, just in the markets we feel will gain the quickest momentum. And of course, for the people that you've had for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, they all have KPIs because ostensibly you're going to be talking about a manager. Managers all want to know, how am I performing? So again, we live in an open architecture world. What we've got to adopt is the same open architecture to do evaluations. This review happens for OMD, PhD, M2M, and OMG people. It happens in the States, it happens in Europe, and we've been slow at implementing simply because we haven't had a talent officer in the office, which again, we will put right in January. So people can go online, it's a 360 evaluation, it's very open architecture, it's not finger pointing, it's very, very inclusive. So now you've got them, you've got this talent, you've trained them, you've engaged them, you've even involved them to a degree, so you can see as we go around our ecosystem, those things are really simple. Now what do you do? Because you've got big expectations and big momentum with people, 6 to 10 years. So how do you create that philosophy? How do you go the next stage? So just like McDonald's, who've been running their universities for years with their people, we've been doing the same. But we've padded them out, we've whittled them down, and we're taking out cells of that. I know WPP just launched something in Shanghai, which I was really pleased to see they're following us 3 years ago, because we did it 3 years ago in Shanghai. Omnicom University went from Boston, where we train our guys in mini MBAs over a 3-year period. We've taken it to China, and we're taking some of that structure into our markets. That mini MBA encourages people to asking questions. It encourages people to be inclusive. And it shows managers that we truly are investing in their future. So this has been something which has been going on through PhD Academy, OMD Academy, and through Boston and Shanghai for 5 years plus. But we have to be better at it because those managers do need that extra leverage. Looks like some very scary analytics charts with some bars and so on. All they are is analytics on what you do well, but just as importantly, what you're not doing well, so that we can help and support our managers in eradicating the weaknesses and build on the strengths. So as we've done this over the last 14 months in Australia, our churn rate in Australia has gone from 23% to 12%. And that's the kind of dynamic that I think shows why this kind of thing, building an ecosystem, is working for us. Of course, everybody wants to identify their stars. So what happens when you've got 60, 80, 100 people all vying to be that manager, all wanting to be the star? It's very difficult to manage expectations. So if you're going to run open architecture, you've got to go the full way. So in open architecture, you identify the stars. People know who has been identified. For me, I'm quite happy because internally it creates some competition between the guys, but it's open competition. There is no backstabbing. We haven't had any instance of people talking behind other people's back, trying to trip people over. We've had people that are inclusive and very happy for the people that have been identified as stars because there is a training program for stars. And that training program goes on to include succession for which role they're looking to get into. So we ask them to identify the role. Now, managing expectations from that point gets very, very difficult. There aren't always the roles open for people, so we are going to experience churn. Again, it would be crass for me to stand here and say we've got positions open for everybody. We don't. But the goal is to ensure that everybody knows where they are on their career path. This is a survey we've been doing, we do everywhere in OMD and PhD, but it's been running in Australia for 5 years. 2011 results come out in February 2012. This is a litmus test and a health check for myself, the leader of OMD or the leader of PhD, to make sure underneath everything we're doing, are we sending the right message? Do they believe in the vision and the management, that they care about them? Because there's a word that I haven't used in the entire presentation in the ecosystem. If you're not having fun, people are going to walk. So there's all of this stuff going on, all of this expectation, but if you haven't injected fun, you're not going to have a happy workforce. The ecosystem will not work. So as you can see from the scores, we're doing kind of okay. I moan about the 80s, I'd like it to be 90s, but we've got 70s in some markets. So we've got work to do. When you've done that, you can have a set of principles. These principles will appear on our TV screens in all of our offices. They're already up in our Sydney, Melbourne offices in front of 550 people every day. Now, some people believe more in honesty and integrity. Some people believe more in passion and pride in our work. All of these are presentations in their own right. I don't expect people to believe in all of them, but there'll be parts in there for everybody. It's a buffet. This is how we get our people involved, inclusive, and engaged in what we do. This creates that ecosystem philosophy where everybody knows what it is to work in an Omnicom Media Group brand. And having fun is at the heart of it. Having fun is the key ingredient. Without that ingredient, you don't bake the cake, whether it's PhD or OND, and I am in one of those photos, and it's $50 for anyone who can pick me out. But it's for the guys to genuinely see that the management are approachable, that they're capable of laughing at themselves, that they can have fun with the guys, that they're open to questioning, they're open to being told, I don't think we're doing things right, and that there will be an answer, not just a wall. So that's part of the fun. Although these pictures are some of our Pacific office pictures, we have pictures like this from every office in Asia Pacific. So, in summary, and you're now 3 minutes away from the drinks trolleys, guys, what does all of that mean? Because an ecosystem has to have an output, lots of input to everything, but our stuff in OMG for the last 18 months has all been about driving output. Let's stop talking about the stuff we know we're bad at. We don't train brilliantly, so correct it. Let's get the right talent in front of the right training tools and move on. In reality, forgive me, most of you in here I hope would agree, what makes a great agency? What makes a great place to work? If anybody can put their hand up genuinely and say, I wake up in the morning and go, work, you're a damned liar, because it doesn't happen. What we're hoping to do is that you wake up in the morning and think, oh, I've got work today, I wonder what would happen. That's creating the right environment for people to work in, because they know they're going to have fun, they know it's inclusive, they know it's not somewhere that they're going to be left in the dark because it's an open architecture setting. And in truth, if you trust the people you work for because you've engaged and involved them, in reality you know that they're going to have pride because you've told them where you're heading as a company. They always know the state of the company in terms of doing well, doing badly. CFOs in the room, I don't mean numbers, I mean where we stand up or down versus our plans. And of course that part is you have to enjoy the people you work with. My goodness, we're talking about some people spending 10 days in vicinity with their colleagues, but we're all scared of saying, do you enjoy work? That's something that we're going to eradicate at OMG over the next 18 months to the way we've eradicated it already in our Pacific markets, in our UK, European markets, and already largely in our North American marketplace. Because the truth is, you never hear anybody at OMG saying we want to be number one. Maybe they say it under their breaths when I'm not around, but I don't want to be number one. We always want to be the best. We want our guys to work towards being the best that they possibly can, and it's our job to equip them to be that. That's our obligation, to give them the tools and the equipment to get there, and the evaluations to get there. And although Confucius is probably the cleverest man in the world, a damn sight cleverer than me, I agree with that first part. Choose a job you love. For those of you who know me, you know I love what I do. I'm excited every day about I don't quite get up and go, yippee. Certainly didn't this morning at 5 o'clock getting off a plane. But the reality is that second part, I'm not sure is true for many people in the room, that you never have to work a day in your life, because he couldn't have worked in Asia the way we all do, because it's really tough. But it is fantastic. If you can love what you do, life will be much simpler. So that environment is exactly what we want to produce for our people. And that's what our ecosystem is all about. Ooh, 2 sharks, guys. Good with technology. So that's the ecosystem. 5 things, really simple, really easy to explain to our guys in an open architecture that people can go online and interrogate to their heart's content, which is already underway in Australia. And the last point, genuinely, over time, if you get the ecosystem right, you build a culture backing up into philosophy through all of those other things that becomes your DNA. We've always had a very strong creative DNA at Omnicom Media Group because of our partners that we work with. But what we want to create is the right environment for people to have to come to work and actually enjoy what they do. Because if you get that right, genuinely, anything is possible. Thank you.